Hello, Bilish Kavava here with another MTG video, posting new MTG videos every 2 days. So if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, why not subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, because it really does help, and I'm doing this every 2 days. But today I want to do a little bit of something different, a little bit of a response video, if you could call it that. It's probably not that, but it's a bit of a response video to Alpha Investments, Rudy from Alpha Investments to be precise. And I know that this might get a little bit of hate my way. I know a lot of people love Rudy. I love Rudy. I think Rudy's a fantastic personality. I think he's fantastic the way he's brought people into Magic the Gathering, how vibrant he is, how vibrant his channel is, and how much love that he gets and how popular he is. I think that's all fantastic. But this is a response to his recent video. He did a recent video asking and saying that if he was in charge of Wizards of the Coast, he would expand the reserve list. He would add more cards to the reserve list. And his basically premise to doing that is that investors don't have a choice. The reserve list is very small, and all the money is being funneled into these few cards. There's nothing else for investors to invest in because everything else is getting hit with reprints. So they push all their money into the reserved list and drive these cards to astronomical amounts. And his idea was if you put more cards into reserved list, you actually give investors more choice and the money actually spreads out more. And he was suggesting one new card every month. And I gotta say that I think this is a pretty terrible idea. The reason that we have such high prices and why so many people can't play Legacy and Vintage and stuff like that is because the reserved list drives the price of cards so high. Adding more cards to the reserved list would only cause more problems. That's how I see it. I see it like if we look forward and we think if we put a card on the reserved list today, and it might not be worth nothing, it might be a card from, let's say, Shadows of Innistrad or a set like that. That card in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, that card will be extremely expensive because it will never be reprinted again. Imagine if you would put an expensive card on this new reserved list. What happens if you get something like Liliana of the Veil? If Liliana of the Veil was put onto a reserved list, it would shoot up to $200 in a week. In the first week where it got put onto the reserved list, it would hit the $200 mark because that would guarantee that it would never be reprinted again. And investors would just buy it all up. Because the problem with the reserved list is that it gives investors no risk. It gives an investor no risk. If they have a 100% guarantee that something will never be reprinted again, ever, that's a guarantee that it will go up. It will never go down, it will go up because it will never be reprinted again. The ones that have been made are made. So if you give that kind of guarantee to an investor and you take away the risk, they would all just move in. So if you can get a card that's not worth much, and you put it on the reserved list, you take away the risk for the investor. The investor now has no risk that they'll lose money because they've got that ironclad guarantee that that card will never be reprinted. And they would just swoop in and buy it all. And the problem is that I don't think that we should be giving investors more options. I think that's completely stupid. This is a player's game. I think a lot of people are forgetting that this is a player's game first. It's an investment game for some people, but it's a player's game first. And by adding more stuff to the reserved list, you're just causing more problems down the line. The game ain't dying. Magic is not going away. Magic isn't going to die in 10 years' time. So any card you would put in the reserved list today, in 10 years' time would be worth a lot of money. And players from 10 years in the future wouldn't be able to play that card, wouldn't be able to buy that card unless they have a lot of money because investors would hoard that card a lot. And that's what would happen. Because that is what happened with the reserved list that we have now, and that would be what would happen if you put more cards onto the reserved list. So I think it's a pretty terrible idea. Forget about putting something, if you put something in like Jace or Liliana of the Veil, you're driving the price completely crazy And I don't think it's Wizards' responsibility to put in more options for investors. I don't think that's the responsibility of Wizards to say, well, investors only have this to invest in, so let's put more cards into the reserve list so they have more stuff to invest in. I think Wizards' first priority should be to the players that actually play the game, and not to the investors who are hoarding mass amounts of cards to sell later at a profit. I don't think that's Wizards' responsibility. I don't think that's what Wizards should be focusing on. But that's just my thought on it. Once again, I'm a fan of Rudy. I think Rudy's very funny. He's a popular guy. I think it's fantastic what he's done with his channel, what he's done with the thing. I'm not attacking Rudy. I'm just attacking his idea. And my thoughts is that if you put more cards on the reserved list, you are just causing yourself more pain and bigger troubles down the line. If we predict that Magic the Gathering will be around for another 25 years, which I'm predicting that it will be, any card that you put on the reserved list, on the new reserved list today, will be worth so much in 25 years' time. We can't have that happening to future players. We can't have more cards getting onto the reserved list, which is the main problem now with playing these older formats, that you can't get into it because the cards cost so much. And I don't think Wizards has to give options, and I don't think it's Wizards' responsibility to give options to investors. And I think the reserved list is a problem, and adding to the reserved list would just be making the problem bigger in the long term, because any card you put on the reserved list removes that risk from the investor. And once an investor has no risk, they would just hoard mass amounts of the cards. So that's my opinion on this. I want to hear what your opinion is. What side do you fall on? Do you fall on my side, or do you fall on Rudy's side, Alpha Investment side? And I know that Alpha Investment will probably get much more on his side than on my side, because he's very popular and I'm a nobody. I'll admit right now 100% that I'm a nobody. But I'm interested to see what the community thinks about this. Well, what side does the community fall on? Does the community fall on the Rudy side, the Alpha Investment side, thinking investors need more options? Or do they fall on my side and thinking that adding to the reserved list would just cause bigger problems later on down the road for players? Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. Bilish Kavava posting up new MTG content every 2 days, so if you like what you see, why not sub to the channel? Bilish Kavava. Ow.